When Jake Oettinger stops 5.74 goals above expected, you're going to have a bad time. The Minnesota Wild get blanked tonight by a score of 3-0. 0 for 4 on the power play. You can't do that. Defense, goaltending, again, not the issue. It's just the offense continues to struggle. Let's break it down here on tonight's Locked On Wild postcast.
You are Locked On Wild postcast, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Minnesota Wild fall by a score of 3-0 at the hands of the Dallas Stars to start off a pivotal week for the Wild in their chase for a spot in the Western Conference playoffs. And you don't have to look much further than in net as the reason that this game went the way of the Dallas Stars. I know this is the analytics side. 5.74 expected goals by the Minnesota Wild. They had 9 high danger chances in this game, and Jake Oettinger did not allow a single one to get past him. So this is one of those instances in which you generate from where you should, you still just can't get it past a good goalie. Now, that's in 5-on-5. I think we would all agree that the Wild had the better 5-on-5 play of the night. Power play, you can't go 0 for 4 on the power play against a team like the Dallas Stars and expect that you're going to have a good time. It takes you out of 5-on-5 rhythm. It just saps the life out of what you're trying to do offensively. And it's kind of a morale breaker. It's a backbreaker. And the looks weren't great from said power plays. 5-on-5, I think, did pretty good. But power play continues to be a work in progress. Frankly, I'm a little surprised that the percentage is as high as it has been. I don't really get that. Like they're getting some power play goals, but it's not visually impressive. But again, goaltending, not the problem. Defense, not the problem. Philip Gustafson said it just now after the game. You play like that against a lot of teams in this league, you're going to come out on top. 5.74 expected goals is the highest number of the season for the Minnesota Wild as far as goals generated. That's a Herculean effort by Jake Oettinger to keep all that out. That's the way it goes against good teams. And you just like the big takeaway from this game is you have to find a way. And that's where these other things come into play, like deflections, like weird bounces. You have to find a way to sneak one past a guy that's not going to give you one himself. And the Wild didn't do that tonight. So, it's frustrating to start a pivotal week like this. And, the margins get tighter. The lead against the Vancouver Canucks has shrunk. But I'm just going to say it right now. It's going to be like this every day between now and the rest of the season. If we season's over, we're back every single game, we're going to lose our collective sanity. So Wild didn't have it. They didn't have it offensively tonight. They didn't have the ability to get one past. That's what it comes down to. I'm not going to make this into more than it is. And I see there are already some Stars fans in here, so welcome to the Dallas fans, fresh off of watching a very, very good goalie performance by Jake Oettinger. Like, let's tip our caps. Jake Oettinger was fantastic. You guys got a good goalie. Thanks for tuning in. Let's look at the numbers here for tonight's game. The Wilds outshot the Stars 32-29. The Minnesota Wild had, all told, 50 unblocked shot attempts tonight. They had 35 low danger, they had 6 medium danger, and they had 9 high danger. Their expected goals on high danger chances was 4.24 alone. And that's the highest number I've ever seen. And that's a lot of Jake Oettinger's work cleaning that up and preventing the Wild from scoring there. Frankly, I've never seen a team have that high of a number and not come away with at least one goal. So that's Jake Oettinger. That's when he's at his best. And that's what it comes down to. Power play again, 0 for 4, and the quality of looks on the power play was not great. A lot of perimeter centric play. That's not going to get it done. The Wild penalty kill did allow 1 power play goal, and you can boil it down to that stretch in which Dallas scored on the power play, and then they scored less than 60 seconds later. That's the stretch that killed you. And that is the thing that broke the game. Not being able to, especially in situations like the 4-on-3, feels like you have to come away with a goal there. And the Wild didn't. Face-offs, the Wilds took care of business there. Hits, blocks. It's the circle the power play as the culprit here tonight, because when you're generating and not scoring, you have to manufacture on the power play. I was going to be nice and let this dude hang around, but good night. Get out of here. I want to jump right into this from Anna. What are your thoughts on pregame? Hines saying Brodin isn't hurt and didn't re-aggravate, just day-to-day because he's been out so long. The injury stuff is, I have never seen anything like this. It's so what the hope is that the plan was to have Brodin come in and play one of the 2 games on the back-to-back. But then say that's your plan. Say we're going to get Brodin in one of these 2 games. And nobody would bat an eye. We would say, okay, that's fine. Like, we got him in the Buffalo game. We're going to give him the night off in Dallas because we don't want to play him on a back-to-back. The optics of that's a non-story. That's a non-story. You just say we're not going to play him on both ends of a back-to-back, and we wouldn't be talking about it right now. But the fact that they immediately rushed to, he didn't re-aggravate. We're just playing it slow. Like, and I know it basically is saying the same thing, but just say we're going to ease him in. Like, then media such as myself don't immediately go to, oh my God, he re-aggravated. And now Declan Chisholm got hurt tonight. and left in the second period and did not come back. And David Juracek got hurt in Iowa. I am out. I am out of answers. I'm out of, frankly, I'm out of injury patience, which means you're going to see Cameron Crotty tomorrow. If Chisholm is not able to go, you're going to see Crotty in an emergency capacity. Like, I have never seen a team have to wringing water out of a rag to maneuver the roster due to injuries. It is painful. It is like pulling teeth. It's hideous. It is this team's curse this year. I mean, I would be careful what you wish for. I'd be careful what you wish for, Hoptics. Chisholm is an offensive-oriented defenseman. His defense is not what he's known for. Like elevating John Merrill to the second pairing and putting Crotty on the third pairing with Zach Bogosian. That's probably what you're going to get. When was the last time any player on this team got a point? Like, Freddie Gaudreau is leading this team in goals since Kirill Kaprizov got hurt. Let that sink in. Everybody's been bad offensively. It's not just him. Yeah, it's bad. John, and look, I like this from Britt. John Merrill had another play. Now he also had a pretty bad penalty. But he's been single-handed. He's been literally saving some goals here lately. Like you are limited in what you're limited in what you can do for call-ups right now, unless you put players on injured reserve. You can't make moves because there are so many different players who are day-to-day, who are banged up. Marcus Foligno now, day-to-day. We all know what that means. That's probably closer to week. Let's go to how much does Rossi want? $8 million, worth 6.5. And I got eviscerated on YouTube for this because apparently I was blindly defending Bill Guerin by saying that the Rossi camp may be asking for a high number that the Wild don't want to pay, as opposed to the Wild just offering a bad deal. Sure. I mean, it's entirely possible that it's entirely possible that the Wild are lowballing. But how often do you see a player in their camp going high on what they think they're worth? You see it all the time. We won't know. Like, we won't know what the ask is until the figures get somehow publicly exchanged. We won't know. But if it's above 7 to 8, I have no problem paying that. If it gets above 8 that's then where we get into the point where it's like, I think we maybe see something at that point. And honestly, I would just be much more inclined to go the arbitration route, as opposed to just trading him outright. Give it a year. See if you can get something figured out. Can we all agree that Nyquist and Brazo are the worst trades BG has done? I mean, what do they even bring to the table? Well, Brazo, that I think was just Billy, I think, kind of trying to go further into the only really corner that he can. I'm just going to point it out because I saw the play specifically. So in one rush, Brazo was bringing the puck up the right side of the zone. It was a 3-on-2. So the Wild had an odd man rush. Brazo was bringing it up the right side, and he crashed towards the net, and he was going to try a centering feed to try to get somebody to spring somebody. In my head, in that instance, I send the pass towards the net. Like, you can maybe feed one through the crease to try to get the backdoor tap, right? He sends the pass backwards into the middle of the zone, and it's picked off by Dallas, and they take it back the other way. I think the team, by and large, I think there is too much of a tendency to retreat, too much of a tendency to pull back out of the zone and work on the perimeter. Like, you have to, especially when you're struggling to score goals, you have to crash. Like, you gotta push all of your chips at the net. And it just, that was just one. It's like, I would much rather have seen that pass. I would much rather have seen that pass go towards the net to try to take advantage of Oettinger maybe getting out of position and being able to chip one past. But I don't know. I never played hockey, so I don't know. I don't know how some of that stuff works. And as far as Gustav Nyquist goes, I think Billy opted for some comfortability there, but he's clearly having a down year. He's clearly having a down year compared to where he was at had they acquired him last year in the midst of a career season. And sometimes it's just hard for guys to kind of pull out of that. It's just, I heard somebody tweet out again regarding the New York Rangers this year. Sometimes you just can't get out of your own way. Sometimes you just can't pull out of a slump. So I think those were we're not going to dip into, and especially with Bill Guerin saying that they're not going to dip into the cap, the LTIR. If that's off the table, then you are very limited as to what you can do. Like, there just are limited options as to what you're able to do with that money free. If Kaprizov does not sign an extension, will that spell the end for Billy? I would think so. I don't think that is I don't think any front office executive would be able to survive those optics. Now, if you if you offer him $15 million a year for 8 years and he turns that down, like, what are you supposed to do? That's a pretty competitive offer. If he turns that down, then he's probably never signing here in the first place. I still am really not worried about the Kaprizov extension. I know, based off of the fact that this singular year, after a hot start, is not going according to plan, has led to many attempts to jettison the escape pods. This team, I'm going to go back. I'm going to put myself in full accountability mode. I didn't pick this team to make the playoffs to start the year. I said they were going to be in a wild card fight, and I didn't expect them to be in the position that they're currently in. They overachieved to start the year. But the limitations on this roster still exist. And that's not something that is going to be fixed during the season. That's something that's going to have to be fixed after the year is done. Now, obviously, we are dealing with a level of injuries that I don't think has ever happened, frankly. And the fact that this team is still floating speaks to character, speaks to a tight-knit group. But that expectation to win a playoff series is always going to be there. If they make the playoffs this year, the expectation is going to be that they win a round. And in order to do so, you got to find some secondary scoring. Now, some good news that I think we are long overdue for: Joe Smith and Michael Russo putting out into the ether that their expectation is that Kirill Kaprizov will begin skating by the end of the week. Let me repeat. Joe Smith and Michael Russo putting out into the ether that they expect that Kirill Kaprizov will begin to skate by the end of the week. So sit and take that in for a second. It doesn't mean a whole hill of beans lot until he comes back. But the fact that he's actually now at the point, finally, where he is ready to resume skating is a good sign. Because it may take longer for guys to go from doing nothing to like resuming skating to getting ready to getting game ready is probably the longest thing. But once these guys get going, it may take a week and a half of good skating to get back and ready. So hope is, to quote Gandalf the Grey, hope is kindled. At least for now. We've got a lot more to get to here. By the way, it is great to be back. I missed these. Just too busy with winter sports to be able to get them on the schedule. Glad to be back. We'll have one for you tomorrow night. We'll have one for you on Thursday. We'll have one for you on Saturday. We're in full go until the end of the season. So we've got a lot more to get to here. We'll take your comments. I want to do some interactive polls here as well, but we're going to sneak in a quick commercial break. Minnesota Wild fall tonight by a score of 3-0, and our Locked On Wild postcast continues after this. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to keep you feeling fuller longer. I love the honey roasted, no shell, wonderful pistachios because I don't have to sit and peel them. I can just pour myself. A nice little bowl and enjoy a couple of handfuls. And it's a great snack. They're good for you, and I love the taste. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Tonight's Locked On Wild postcast also brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. For instance, I found out that I was paying for a PlayStation Plus subscription. I used it once and meant to cancel it and never did. So now I don't have to worry about that, in addition to several other subscriptions that were just auto-deducting from my bank account. And we got rid of all those. So now I got a little more money to play with. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Minnesota Wild lose tonight by a score of 3-0 to the Dallas Stars. And a note here, I'd love to get it to where the Wilds can have consistent success against the Dallas Stars. But to quote the great Pedro Martinez, just call the Stars our daddies. They have just taken the upper hand, as is Winnipeg, as has mostly Colorado. And until the Wilds develop some legitimate secondary scoring, it's going to be tough because you are playing as though you have to limit your opponent. You're trying to play to where you can limit your opponents more than they score, and the odds of that happening, especially in a series, a 7-game series against the same team. I'm not saying it's impossible, but the odds of that happening regularly are just not great. And I'll bring this point up again because I think it's worth noting. The team just they cannot finish, and you shouldn't expect a lot of these types of players to be high on the finishing scale. They're not. Like Zach Bogosian had a shot from the top of the zone tonight. I nearly shut the TV off. Bogosian had a shot from the top of the zone tonight. He fully wound up and he absolutely let it fly, and it missed the net by 8 feet to the right. I'm like, okay. But that's like, even in close, these guys just are not capable of high levels of finishing. And when you have, for instance, when you couple that with a down year in the finishing department for a player such as Matt Boldy, when you couple that with him having a year in which his finishing has been down, it's not great. Like, who is supposed to chip in these goals? And that's why we keep saying you got to go to the front of the net, because it's like a 6-inch putt for birdie. You miss that, you probably should quit playing golf. So the finishing, like it's not a ton. I'm not as worried about the chances that are being generated as much as I am the finishing, if that makes sense. They're generating decent looks. They're generating decent chances. They just can't finish them, which is a far bigger problem at this point in the season. I want to go to this from Trevor. Thoughts on moving Spurge to make room for Rossi extension and spend whatever's left after Kirill's extension on offensive help? Switch the mentality from defensive to offensive. Well, that was mentioned as a possibility in the latest Worst Seats in the House. That, because look at this. So your D-core is currently locked in with Spurgeon, Brodin, Middleton, Faber, Bogosian, Merrill, and Chisholm. That's 8 right there. You also have Zeev Boyum. You've got David Juracek. That's 10 defensemen right there. And your defenseman is your D-core is currently eating up a lot of your cap. You've got 3 guys that are going to be making 7+. So it kind of feels like you maybe need to move some of that money. Like here's your contracts for defense right now. And I stand corrected. It's 3 players that are making more than 6 because Jonas Brodin is making $6 million. For some reason, I thought he was making 7. Spurgeon's making $7.575 million a year until the end of the 2026-2027 season. Now, Spurgeon has a 10-team no trade. So what that means, and because he's the captain, it's not going to go down this way. But what that means is Bill Guerin, any team that's not on that list, he can send him there if the deal is right. He can say, all right, here you go. We're shipping you off to Buffalo. Oh, no, not Buffalo. Yikes. But you see my point, is that if it's not one of those 10 teams, Bill Guerin can make that move. Jonas Brodin has a no movement clause this season, has nothing next year. No trade protection whatsoever. Jake Middleton has a no movement clause next year, but then his drops to a 15-team no trade. Zach Bogosian has no trade protection. John Merrill's an unrestricted free agent. Declan Chisholm is a restricted free agent. He will be an unrestricted free agent in 2027, 2028. So you could go to arbitration with Chisholm. And I got to correct myself here because I'm just looking at Puckpedia. I'm an idiot. Clip that and use that on social media. Marco Rossi is a restricted free agent, but it does not specifically state that he is arbitration eligible. So my bad on being just a huge idiot and making that point up and down on today's episode and having it not be true. Whoops. Pay better attention. Yeah, so pieces are movable on defense. Spurgeon in the playoffs is a target. Dump the puck into his corner and physically pound him on the forecheck. Great player still, just not sure if the Wilds can go on a run with 46. Brian, I think that I talked about on a previous episode. I talked about Bill Guerin having to make some tough choices to kind of take this roster from where it's at currently and get it to, the next version. And honestly, a Spurgeon move could be one of those tough choices. Because you've got Zeev Boyum, you've got David Juracek, and if you keep Juracek in Iowa next year, then what was the point of even bringing him in? If you're not going to incorporate him into the mix, I know this year they're having him work with Andy Ness quite a bit to get his skating up. We got a little cup of tea. He looked pretty good. But if he is in position again to just sit in Iowa or to come up for 7 games and just rot on the bench, that seems like that was mismanaged assets. So he's in the mix. You've got Zeev Boyum in the mix as well. And Boyum is going to be a pretty quick study, I would imagine. And Spurgeon's he's been a very decorated defenseman. But you've got to make some tough choices. Whether it be him, whether it be somebody else, whether it be some of the forwards, it feels like Bill Guerin is going to have to make a tough choice or two with this roster in order to get it to where it needs to go. If we get destroyed by Vegas tomorrow night, is it worth just trying to see what our prospects got? Okay, I don't really see us doing anything in the postseason, but the team probably wants to fight. Yeah, they'll continue to fight. I mean, the easy response is going to be that the injuries derailed the season, and it's not wrong. But there's no reason to tank this year because you don't have a first-round pick. So tanking makes no sense at this point in the season. You have invested enough that you may as well go fully down swinging. And if you end up losing out, like if you find yourself in a position to where it's not going to happen, then yeah, maybe you bring up a few prospects to see what they've got. But like I saw a couple of those. I saw a couple of those on Twitter, and people saying like that the Wild need to tank and try to get a first-round pick or a higher first-round pick. It's like they don't have one this year. So, yeah. Side topic, but do other GMs also sometimes come across as an a-hole when speaking to the press? I don't know, but that irks me when the press is just doing their job. Yes. This is a good observation, KJ. It happens in all sports and in all walks of life. People are just wired differently. Some get it. A lot of them get it. And a lot of them are really gracious with their time because they know that if they are accommodating to the media that are covering them, that the media will in turn be accommodating with the coverage. It's a give and take. And you're not always going to agree. You're not always going to be on the best of terms. But we saw this as a big reason. We saw this as a big reason as to why Paul Fenton's tenure failed here, is that Paul Fenton feared the press. He did not like the press. He did not trust the press. And as a result, he tried to limit access, limit information that was shared. And that's not how you do it. The cloud of secrecy is not the way to try to control what good reporters too. Like, let's not bury that lead. Good reporters and good people that put a lot of time into covering this team and have the ability to kind of just feel the pulse. Like, think about the times that I've been even keel after games like this. And think about the times that things have just not, like, think about the times that I've gone off the deep ends. Like, you just kind of get a pulse for how things are going and when things are kind of starting to teeter and when it's just a little speed bump in the road. Access is the name of the game. Paul Fenton hid from that, ran from that. And honestly, that's some of the stuff that gets a little annoying with Billy is he in my opinion, he doesn't really have any reason to get upset at people asking about timelines for different players. We should be asking those types of questions because they're important players to this team. And the longer it's just I don't know when they're going to come back. That's not a good thing. Because think about any time that you've gone to the doctor. When you have a procedure done, the doctor doesn't just say, well, I don't know. Like they say, you're going to be like, if you would have like a hernia surgery or a groin surgery, they would say, okay, you're going to be laid up. You're going to be laid up for this amount of time. Now we want you to do this, this, and this to kind of build yourself back up, but take it very careful for 6 to 8 weeks. And then after that, then you can start to ramp up a little more. Like we've never done this surgery before, so we don't know what's going to happen. Like if a doctor said that, they would not be a doctor anymore. And other teams don't do it this way. Other teams will say, hey, this player had knee surgery. He's going to be out 8 to 12 months. Okay, done. Boom. But with the Wild, it's like, oh, he got hurt? Oh, I didn't notice anything. Well, I guess then that means he's going to be day-to-day. We've had like 4 different guys that have been day-to-day since after Christmas. And Christmas was like, it was 3 months ago today. And there still are players that are day-to-day. You think Zeev will play much when Hines doesn't like the young ones? I go back and forth on this whole hates the rookies thing. Because Hines doesn't put the roster together. Bill Guerin makes those calls. Bill Guerin's the one that says, here's who comes up, here's who is sent down. I don't know. Like, I don't know where I stand on that whole thing. I would hope so. I think he's certainly talented enough to be able to play. But I guess we'll see. Is 7.5 too much for Spurge? Seems like it to me. This is a really good question, Creepy Colors, because I think the last few years, I think Spurgeon has hit. I think he's hit above that level, like in terms of market value. And as good as Spurgeon has played this year, we are starting to see. I think we're starting to see him just not hit that like break even. He's still a very good defenseman, but you're seeing him finally get to the point where his market value, his production value is not equaling his salary. And that's the point where you should look to, that's the point where you maybe should start to look at making a move. But if I pull up if I just take a look at the point shares, I like to use point shares as a metric for defensive performance, especially because some of the like goals against, expected goals against stuff, that doesn't really help me the best. But as far as defensive point shares go, Spurgeon is third on the team right now. So defensively, he is still very much there. And actually, offensively, he's fifth on the team. He's fifth on the whole team. Don't like that. Love that for Spurgeon, but I don't like that for the rest of the Wild, that he's fifth on the team in offensive point shares as a defenseman that has missed 15 games so far this season. 16 games so far this season. But the defense is still there. The durability is the big thing at this point with Spurgeon. And if you're still getting good production from him, can you live with the trade-off of a guy that's going to give you 60 to 70 games a year? Can you live with that? That's the big question at this point. What is the Johansson shot counter up to at this point? Well, Bob, because you asked nicely, I'm gonna count it here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. 34 out of a possible however many games he has played this year, which is 60. 34 out of 60 games. And Johansson had 8 shots on goal and another. I don't know. I've been wanting to see that spot upgraded for 3 years. And yet, here we continue to sit. Is it my imagination, or are we all hooked to the plow compared to other top teams? It's not your imagination. And this is what the Wild are hoping that their prospects are going to be able to add. But this team does not have a dearth of speed. They're not a fleet of foot team. And if you are not going to be that, you've got to be a possession team. You got to make it really tough for the other team to control the puck. And, that kind of comes and goes for this Wild team. Can we target Robo, or is he locked in? Well, technically he's not, but I think he is in the final year of his deal next year, but then he is a restricted free agent after that. I would be shocked if Dallas doesn't get something done with him. Especially now that Mikko Rantanen can be their number one guy, although good luck with that. I'm going to be shocked if they don't get something done with him. They drafted him. They have really done a good job of prioritizing the draft and developing. Envious of that. They've done a really good job making their second round picks especially pop. Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, hitting on Miro Heiskanen and Thomas Harley in back-to-back drafts. Not bad. The key for the Wild is going to just be to get the prospects onto the roster in a manner in which they aren't overwhelmed and they can kind of step in and fill some of the holes in the lineup gradually. The issue is the cap money is finally off. The core is showing wear and tear. Ek, Brodin, Spurgeon all have a lot of tread on the tires. They will need to they're going to need to hit the depth to ensure that those guys, when they do miss time, that there's somebody that can capably step in and fill that spot. Who would I like to see the Wild target? Well, I think the most notable name that is linked to the Wild at this current moment is Brock Besser. Obviously Brock Nelson as well. If I had to choose between the two, I would probably elect for Besser because he's younger. But it depends. It depends on if those guys even get to free agency. Like if Besser re-ups with Vancouver, then that's a moot point. This is another good one. I'd rather see guys like Hunter Haight play 4th C than Gauntz and Shore. They give nothing. It gives a little love to a young guy in Iowa. That 4th line is going to have to be meaningfully addressed sometime, because you can't just continue to trot those guys out there and have them not give you anything other than the old college try. Somebody's got to give you some semblance of offense. Somebody has to. And there are a lot of guys, again, that can get to the basket. They can shoot the puck, but it's not accurate. It's not accurate, and they're not finishing on these looks. Marner is a route that I feel like is going to, if he doesn't go back to Toronto, somebody is going to grossly overpay. He's making 10.9 right now. Some team is going to give him 12 or 13. And if it gets to that, I would rather the Wild not be involved, because then you are going right back into tight mode after just getting out of tight mode. Some names on the free agent list. Mitch Marner, obviously. Matt Duchene, coming off of a couple of solid seasons with the Dallas Stars. Nikolai Ehlers is an interesting one. He's 29. He's been a pretty pivotal piece for the Winnipeg Jets. So that's kind of an intriguing one. Mikael Granlund, Ryan Donato, Brad Marchand, Sam Bennett. I would imagine Bennett re-ups with Florida. Neil Pionk. Jack Roslovic might be a good one to keep an eye on. He's 28. Pius Suter, maybe. Can I go by no, of course not. I was gonna say, can I go by position here? But no, I can't. Who else? Yeah, Marchand is the classic rat. He's a guy that you hate to play against, but if he's on your team, he is he's an absolute key piece. What would you pay Bennett? That's actually a good question. Bennett is, what did he make this past season? 4.425. And he currently has 23 goals, 50 points. Urban, I'm gonna look into that for an episode, because I mean, that would be a guy that I'd probably be okay, especially since he's coming off of a 4-year deal. He's going to want like 6 or 7. I'd probably be okay with giving him that. He's a good face-off guy. He can get you 25, 30 goals. By the looks of it, he's stayed relatively healthy. I wouldn't mind going that route. How many guys have us on their no trade lists, though? Not sure what kind of deals will even be available once the cap money is available. Well, that's why, these are all free agents, and it's entirely possible that these guys just straight up say no. Thanks. Yeah, Bennett and Ehlers wouldn't be bad. Can you break a no trade agreement? Any loopholes? This happened, I think, last year or the year before. The Vegas Golden Knights tried to trade somebody to a team that was on their no trade list. And I believe this is how the Ottawa Senators got fined a first-round pick. Hang on one second. Fined first-round pick. Let me just read the story here because there was something like this. Okay. The National Hockey League today announced, this was in 2023. The National Hockey League announced the Ottawa Senators will forfeit a first-round pick for their role in the July 2021 trade of Evgeny Dadonov from the Senators to the Vegas Golden Knights and the subsequent invalidated March 2022 trade of Dadonov between the Golden Knights and the Anaheim Ducks. The determination, that literally does mean no good. But basically, if I recall, Dadonov had the team that he got traded to on his no trade list, and they traded him anyway. So the league would step in that instance and say, no, we're not doing this. So it wouldn't necessarily be retribution from the player. It'd be retribution from the team, and then they essentially rescind it, and then it just gets awkward. And this is a good point by Keith too. Philip Gustafson's going to be eligible for a new deal, and I think based on how he's played for 85% of the season, 90% of the season, I think he's somebody that you definitely want to look to keep around because pretty darn good goalie. Yeah, this is another one. Sergachev got traded 2 days before his no trade clause kicked in last year. That's absolutely savage. Only chance the Mild has to compete is if Craig Leopold sold the team. Go dump on some other fan base. That stuff is just exhausting to me. Like, if you are that put off by what a team is doing, why do you even bother watching? All right. Well, with that, I'm calling it. We're going to call it a night. Minnesota Wild lose to the Dallas Stars here tonight, 3-0. Thanks everybody for tuning in to another Locked On Wild postcast. We'll be back at it with an episode tomorrow. We'll do another pregame hit before the game against Vegas, and we'll have another postcast coming up for you after the game as well. So to quote John Hines after the game against the Seattle Kraken, everybody get some sleep, and we'll be back with you tomorrow right here on Locked On Wild.